Politics, starting us off tonight, Vaughn Hilliard, our campaign embed who is covering the Trump transition. He is at Trump Tower tonight, just back from dinner. April Ryan, Washington bureau chief for American Urban Radio Network. She's in Baltimore. And Ken Vogel, chief investigative reporter with Politico, is with us from Washington. Mr. Hilliard, it's germane that you're back from dinner. We're not sharing your private life because you were there at least enough to cover some flavor of the dinner between the two newsmakers tonight. What can you tell us about the environmentals, the surroundings?
For the record, Brian, I did not have the sautéed frogs or the chocolate cake that they had. But it was several hours ago now that Trump Tower here, where Donald Trump left with his motorcade about 8 blocks down to the restaurant that you were talking about to meet with Mitt Romney, as well as his incoming chief of staff, Reince Priebus. They dined for about 2 hours in a separate kind of private room where there were multiple tables. When they got up after those 2 hours, everybody in the restaurant kind of applauded. He walked out, and that's where I was up in the bar, and I tried to ask him the question of whether Mitt Romney was his selection. He turned and ended up walking outside, ignoring the question. And it was at that point in which Mitt Romney addressed reporters, and what you heard and was quite the message. This was their second meeting, the first being in Bedminster 2 weeks ago. And here tonight, you hearing that Mitt Romney saying that Donald Trump had a message of inclusion. And it was after that, though, that really where this is at right now is that Mitt Romney, well, this is the second meeting. I was also told today by a Trump transition source that Rudy Giuliani also is going to be speaking with Donald Trump tonight. And Bob Corker, the Senate Foreign Relations Committee senator out of Tennessee, also met with Donald Trump today. And it was just yesterday that retired General David Petraeus met with Donald Trump as well. Brian?
Vaughn Hilliard with the late live dinner report tonight back at Trump Tower. Vaughn, our thanks as always. Ken Vogel, you have written about what's going on inside Trump world. Specifically, Kellyanne Conway comes out very publicly, very forcefully with Chuck Todd, Meet the Press this weekend, comes out against Mitt Romney. And the rest of the political world looked on and said, how can someone with her seniority be allowed to do that if Romney's candidacy for Secretary of State is still alive? What do you think is going on here?
I think there's probably a little bit of a cat and mouse game right now with Mitt Romney, and it's pitting advisors, Donald Trump's closest advisors, against each other. There are certainly those like Kellyanne Conway who feel that Mitt Romney's attacks on Donald Trump during the campaign were simply unforgivable. And I heard from other folks lower down in the sort of rank and file of the campaign who said that when Mitt Romney called Donald Trump a fraud and a phony and a con man, they felt like he was calling them that as well, and calling Donald Trump's supporters that as well, and that by rewarding that, even as Mitt Romney has sort of come forward and groveled a bit to Donald Trump, it would be essentially a slap in the face of Donald Trump's base and the supporters who voted for him and supported him because they wanted to see change from the status quo. And to them, no one represents the status quo more than Mitt Romney. That said, Donald Trump, the only thing he likes more than having people flatter him and say nice things about him is when those same people had criticized him earlier, and he is seen as having won them over. That's certainly the case here with Mitt Romney.
And April, I read a former aide to President Obama say on social media today, don't be fooled by what he called the flair of flag burning. He said a tweet like that is for the base. It's to take attention away from the fact that establishment types are getting appointed slowly to this cabinet. So the question we posed at the top of the broadcast now to you, what happened to the swamp drainage project?
Well, the swamp drainage project continues, but Donald Trump is very good at deflecting. And when there's one big issue, he'll throw something else out there bigger to take the attention away from that issue that was the initial issue. But the process continues. I mean, today we saw Elena Chao. She was the former labor secretary in the Bush administration, and listening to those on the ground, grassroots people like Mark Morial, the head of the National Urban League. He said, you know, she was great. She was great as a labor secretary. He was able to work with her pre-Katrina and post-Katrina, particularly after Katrina, when the issues of trying to place people who were evacuated from New Orleans to put them in jobs. So that's a plus for that one when it comes to bringing people and communities together. But when it comes to the possible Treasury Secretary pick, there is concern. Once again, same thing that he blamed Hillary Clinton for, going onto Wall Street. He's done the same thing. But you've got to remember, both Democrats and Republicans over the last couple of decades have done the same thing, pretty much gone on Wall Street to make their picks for financial advisors and those who will help to run the financial stability of this nation. And then also with that same Treasury pick, there's a problem when it comes to the subprime lending issue that happened during the Bush years. So there's a lot of controversy. And then also on Congressman Price, that's a big issue as well. Congressman Price is going to have a big fight from many grassroots communities when it comes to defunding or changing the Affordable Care Act, which is known as Obamacare, and the Obama administration is now calling it Trump Care when President Trump becomes the 45th President of the United States.
And Ken, during all of this, two questions for you. One, will we ever see the President-elect's tax returns? And two, what about the looming question of conflict of interest? Chiefly today, the concern over the old post office building, now the Trump International Washington Hotel, where in the lease it says you can't be a partner to this lease and be an elected official.
Yeah, we're seeing numerous concerns raised around these sort of conflicts of interest, the overlap between Trump's coming role as leader of the free world, President of the United States, and his wide-reaching business empire. It's not just here, the Trump building that you mentioned, the hotel, just a few blocks from where I'm sitting right now, is hosting an event today, we rather obtained an invitation today for an event that it's hosting with the government of Bahrain is hosting some sort of event there. So this again raises the question of whether there would be foreign interest companies, officials who would seek to either do business with Trump through some of these far-flung enterprises, or otherwise sort of seek to curry favor with the administration through the businesses. It's going to be a real heavy lift, I think, for the incoming White House counsel Don McGahn, who was the campaign's general counsel, to be able to extricate these things. We hear a number of possibilities being floated, from the kids taking over, the adult children of Donald Trump taking over. Of course, they too are advisors informally to Trump, so it would be difficult for him to argue that he has truly separated himself. A blind trust is another thing that's been talked about. Of course, it's difficult to have a blind trust when you have your name emblazoned on all these properties. And then possible full divestiture, something that Donald Trump, I think, my sources tell me, is very much opposed to, but would be the ultimate way to settle these questions.
I'm told we have to scoot to our first break, and thus April and Ken from Baltimore and Washington.